Hi everyone, this is Ramanuj from Losico. Welcome to today's session. We're going to talk about slow economic growth and a potential brain drain that India is facing, and what can be expected going forward. Right? It's very important for all of us because, of course, the economy impacts all of us. It impacts jobs, it impacts businesses, it impacts our ability to borrow loan or raise capital for our businesses and all of that, right? So that's great. So we'll get to that. So let me pull up my slides, right? So I request everyone to introduce yourself in the just tell me who you are, where are you logging in from, what do you do, what are your questions today, what do you want to learn from this webinar. Please share all of that with me, right? So let's begin. Slow economic growth and brain drain ahead. What should be our strategy, right? So how many of you here think that there is a slow economic growth and brain drain ahead? Like, do you think the market is slow, or do you think that it's just normal? It's going to be normal soon again. Hi Akash, Akash Sharma from SLA Noida. Great. Please trouble me with your questions tonight as well. What about others in this session? Please respond. Do you think the market is slow? Do you think the economic growth has slowed down? Do you know anything? Have you heard anything about this in the media, or have you read anything in the newspapers? Right? So the participants, please chime in. Don't keep quiet. Ananya Jain, Nidhi, Pooja, Sumant, Sushil. What do you guys think? Is there a slowdown in the economy? What are your thoughts? So, out of all major economies of the world, India is seeing one of the worst recessions, right? And of course, the pandemic and COVID definitely hurt a lot of, a lot of economies. Mostly everyone has been impacted by this, except for the Chinese economy, not as much impacted quite a bit. But the impact varies, and India has been one of the worst affected. We don't know why there's no analysis available on that yet. Um, Anand Nagar is saying there is a slowdown. Akash Sharma is saying the economy is definitely very slow. According to today's newspaper, Bangladesh may overtake us in the MSME sector. Not only that, also the per capita GDP, like the per person income or per person productivity in our country, is actually falling behind Bangladesh. So our GDP growth rate is already lower than Bangladesh for a while. Bangladesh has been growing at 8%. It's one of the fastest growing. But our GDP growth rate is even behind Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and even other. We are fourth in the subcontinent in terms of GDP growth rate. And it was not like this before. Our GDP used to grow much faster than everyone else. We were the most economically, strongest country in South Asia, right? But that's not the case anymore. Our and mostly, we have been badly impacted by the recession, right? Just a minute. Sorry about that. So yeah, so these things have been happening, and I mean, there are some positive news also, which I just recently shared. Economic uh, outlook projected by IMF, International Monetary Fund. Okay, they said that we can expect a stronger Indian economy in the next fiscal, where where they expect our economy to bounce back to 8%. And they said that there are conflicting data, like there are some World Bank projections which have projected that India will have a negative growth for the year. But IMF said that no, we'll have a positive growth for the year. Like it will be a slower growth, but it will not be as much growth as originally expected for this year before the pandemic hit. But they are saying that it will be better, better than at least no. There will be no negative growth at least, right? But there are others who have projected a depression in India. Okay, that there will be an economic depression possibly. So it's a little confusing right now exactly what will happen, and we of course hope for the best, right? It is no nobody's interest that the economy suffers, uh, but you know let's hope that in the quarter next and after that there will be sharp recovery, and things will get a lot better. But it's hard to say, right? What if there is a slow economy? So we'll talk about that. What will happen if India, because our strategy, we must be prepared. Like people who are well prepared always survive, they always thrive, but people who are not prepared always suffer, right? So um, so whether India will, so the question right now is that whether India will see a moderate growth of 3 to 4%, and according to some people, even a this year. We're not talking about just this year. We're talking about going forward, right? In the years ahead, will India have just a moderate growth of 3 to 4% like it used to have? Like if you look at historically at India, 3 to 4%, 2%, 3%, 4% was India's normal growth rate for decades, right? Because India back then pursued a closed economy, and it was called the Hindu rate of growth. I don't know if you've heard of this term before, and Hindu rate of growth, and it was obviously a pejorative term back then. Uh, but India grew like at that speed for a very long time, and but it is also possible, like IMF is predicting that India's growth will bounce back to 7-8%. IMF predicted 8.1% for the next fiscal and said that we will be the fastest growing economy in the world according to IMF. So what will happen? Do we have a moderate growth or will we have the fastest growth? Depends on one thing, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many others economists, is that will we have a closed economic policy or will we pursue open economic policy? Right. This is very important. Right. If we have a closed economic policy, that would have uh, impact that our economy will grow slowly, whereas we are open to international trade and we embrace globalization even further, and we embrace market efficiencies, that would probably increase our growth. Why can we say this? This is has been observed across the world everywhere, that whenever you open up international trade and you open up your international FDI, foreign direct investment, foreign capital, everything, there has been a greater growth across the world. So you can see there's a very famous example of South Korea versus North Korea. North Korea closed its economy and South Korea did global trade. And South Korea, over the 30 years, just grew like anything. There is tremendous poverty in North Korea, whereas in South Korea, it's one of the richest countries in the world. They have one of the, people are simply way, they have better science, healthcare, everything, because they are integrated with the world and they have pursued a globally open trade. And not only this, even in India, we saw before 1990, when we had a closed economy and we pursued Swadeshi and closed economy for many years. And then after that, when we started opening things up after 1990, Indian economy became one of the fastest growing in the world. It grew like anything, and only comparison was China. We have growth, and we have grown almost as much as China year on year, and tremendous growth has been unleashed by India, which is why we have been ahead of everyone, right? But then we are seeing a different picture now in the recent times. So, but the question is that whether we will continue to be an open economy, or will we have a more government will pursue a more closed economic policy. So we'll talk about what are the things to expect. So what is the current scenario? So definitely these are some things that cannot be denied. The private capital has been destroyed a great deal during the pandemic, right? So a lot of the growth comes from private individuals starting businesses, running businesses. That keeps the economic engine roaring. But private capital, there has been widespread destruction of private capital. Many businesses have suffered, okay, a great deal. Local businesses, small businesses. There are internet businesses like us which we have managed fine, but there are businesses which are small SMEs and all. They have really suffered. Many businesses shut down. You can see if you go to malls, there are so many shops shut down, restaurants shut down everywhere. Like it's retail shops have shut down, right? Foreign investment has come to a standstill. There is some investment still happening, but it is a trickle compared to what was happening before, right? But hopefully it can go up. The government is trying to do things to attract more foreign investment going forward. But if we succeed, it will make a big difference. Even if we don't succeed, that will be a problem. Many bankruptcies can be expected. A lot of companies will go bankrupt in the months to come. Uh, Bankruptcies we have not seen right now because NCLT, where all the IBC or the operation of IBC has been suspended for 1 year, and out of that 1 year, I think 8 months has gone by. So we still have 4 more months, and after 4 months, one could actually take a data to the NCLT and start insolvency proceedings, bankruptcy proceedings, and then we'll come to know how many companies are going bankrupt. But it will happen more and more. I mean, to expect that it won't happen would not be very smart, right? So we know that a lot of companies are not going to bankruptcy right now, although they don't have money and they're not able to pay their liabilities, is because the IBC's operation has been suspended in the hope that maybe the time they get for this 1 year, in that much time they'll recover. And for all we know, the government may even extend that timeline, right? But it doesn't solve the real problem. If those companies are unviable, they'll remain unviable, and avoiding bankruptcy one way or the other, not necessarily a great idea. It can actually lock up productive resources into non-performing companies. We are likely to see higher taxes soon. I mean, this is a conjecture. We don't know this for sure, but it looks like higher taxes may be there because the central government is struggling to pay GST tax deficits to states and have asked states to borrow money instead. So there are tax problems, revenue problems that the government is facing, right? One thing we know is that probably job growth in India will be poor. It is poor right now, and a lot of our young people are coming of age and they need jobs, but job growth in India has been poor and will be poor given the current circumstances. And the brightest of Indian talent will have to start looking for jobs abroad again. In the 1990s, in 80s also, there was this term called brain drain, where the smartest of Indian people are leaving India. Instead of building companies in India or building businesses or doing research in India, they are leaving India. Today, I think it's a little different because there are enough opportunities within India also. Uh, but if job growth will remain poor and there will be economic stress, then we might see another brain drain happening from India, right? So the question is there any way we can go back to the earlier rates of fast growth that we enjoyed for decades, right? So if you are born after 1990, I am born in 87, but I barely remember any time before 1990. So we have been growing up in a country which is liberalized and has seen only fast economic growth. We have not really seen any real economic slowdown until now. So this is the first time we are experiencing. And of course, we all want that we should go back to the earlier rates of fast growth that we enjoyed for decades. So what has to be done if that is to be achieved? So I'll quickly run you through some of the things that needs to be done if we are to achieve um, the previous fast rate of growth, right? So few things quickly. Uh, One is that uh, reforms. Okay, so what really made a difference in the past was reforms. Government really did a lot of reforms after 1990 aggressively, right? And it is the right signal to send to the government, to the foreign investors and even private investors, that the government is serious about reforms, it is serious about making business easier, taxes lesser, making India an attractive place to do business, right? So that is very important. And there is enough capital in the world, but we need to show that this is a safe bet to invest in India, hassle free to do business here, and that we are very serious about economic reforms and growth. And I think in the last couple of months, a lot of good reforms have been done, like reforms that have been long overdue in the in the labor laws, in agricultural laws. A couple of major reforms that have never happened for decades have finally been done. Uh, and it is normally politically difficult to do these reforms. If you look at it that way, uh, agriculture reform has been there in the uh, agenda of even the Congress party, okay, and in the opposition basically, who are opposing it today. It has been there in for many years. Economists have talked about agrarian reforms, okay, but it has not happened. And finally it is getting done. Similarly, since I was a kid, before and after every budget, we heard about labor law reforms. Okay, but it is very difficult to do, because if you are going to reduce the right of manufacturing laborers, then it's very hard. But if you look at India, we have grown tremendously in the services sector, and there are better jobs in the services sector where none of those extreme protections that are available to the people in the manufacturing sector, that is not available to people in the services sector. But still, services sector jobs are sought after, and services sector has done much better in India, despite not having any such laws. And workers in the service sector get much better rights compared to laborers in the manufacturing sector. So, in a way, these kind of reforms are being done, and I think there are a lot of other reforms that can be done. Even in the legal sector, we need to see some reforms, right? We need lower taxes, simpler tax structures, okay, making land easily available for industries and investors, faster and cheaper dispute resolution process, allowing foreign law firms to practice transactional law in India. It has been a long-standing demand of foreign investors that allow foreign law firms to be there in India, and not everything. They just will do the work related to FDI. That is all they want. They don't want the foreign law firm to come and do everything here. But at least that kind of work that is related to FDI, the foreign law firms can be allowed to do that. Then also we need a massive cut down on corruption, which acts as an additional tax and turns away many conscientious foreign investors. So there are laws in USA, UK, Europe, that you cannot pay a bribe. And if you have to indulge in corruption to do business in India, then a lot of those investors will never come to India. They will choose not to do business in India rather than engage in corruption. So this is also a big problem. We must stop corruption in this country to attract. It's one of the important reforms to attract foreign investment into India, right? And the other thing is that government has to disinvest aggressively. So our government has a lot of big assets, okay, so where they are holding those assets, but it will be much better if they disinvest and sell those assets and use the money it generates from selling assets to kickstart an investment cycle through massive government spendings on education and public infrastructure. That is much better. Okay, so if the government starts spending money on public infrastructure, that'll be better than it running so many companies and holding big assets. So this is very much, this is exactly what started in India after the 1990s, these kind of reforms. And that is what has, led to a lot of economic growth. But then after that, when the economic growth started, government also got a lot of pushback from different people that no, you cannot do all these things, you cannot disinvest, you cannot, sell off government assets, you cannot, government jobs must be there, and so on and so forth, right? So socialist demands and the demands that you have to you cannot make reforms. So there are a lot of those oppositions that have been there. But I think now we have come to a situation that this tremendous recession and this tremendous situation calls for some big measures and bold policies. And we are already seeing some of that from the government. But there is a lot to be done still. And we hope that government will continue to make further reforms only in those lines. Right? So if as an individual, then what can we do, right? So that question comes that okay, this is fine as a company. I mean, we'll talk about what companies can do, but we're going to talk about what individuals can do, right? So one option is to actually, like we said, brain drain. That a lot of people are considering that can I get a job outside India and work for economies that have the economic advantage, right? So, but honestly, what is happening in India that because of the work from home culture and the global economy, the way it is shaping up, now you don't even have to leave the country. You can stay here and work for foreign companies, which a lot of people are doing in India, especially technology. People who are working in the domain of technology, data science, people who are working in coding, coders, software developers. Many of them are already working online for foreign clients, foreign employers. Okay, and it's working well for them because it works well for the foreign companies also because they are able to recruit people at a much lower price. They don't have to pay the minimum wage in America or Europe for that matter. They can hire people much at a much lower price in India, and they find much better resources for a much lower price. So it is a huge advantage for them to do so. So definitely that is one option that you can pursue, right? So remote work revolution, we'll see a revolution in remote work, but at the same time we can expect some people migrating out of India as well. Some smart people will be migrating out of India for better jobs, and there may be a bigger number of people migrating out of India for this reason. One thing that you are likely to see is a lot of need for rescaling. Why is this happening? Because even today I got a mail from somebody at LinkedIn and they were writing about this, that the jobs are changing fast because people are working from home. Job descriptions are changing fast, the world is changing fast, the work is changing very fast, and it is very different. New kind of work is coming up. There was the situation and things were changing very frequently, but now it is changing at an altogether different pace because of this situation. And then so employers need people who can learn quickly and adapt quickly, and they are people who are upskilling themselves very quickly. And this has become more important than ever, right? Same for clients. Even if you're a lawyer and you want to work with clients, you'll see that clients want a different set of skills. They have a different set of problems. They have a different set of questions today. So even if you used to do something earlier in a way, it doesn't work today. A lot of foreign companies are another trend that we are seeing is that a lot of foreign companies are setting up big centers in India, like development centers, okay, or sales development centers, marketing development centers, software development centers, and they are hiring thousands of people in India for doing that work. This is not outsourcing. They are not outsourcing to another company. They are setting up their own captive workforce in India. To give you an example, Walmart is managing its entire US software operations from India, and they have hired 7,000 Indian engineers within a few months to do this from India, right? And they are going to expand it even further. And there are many others. So there are jobs getting created, but very different kind of jobs, unlike earlier. right? There are a lot of, not all companies are large enough to set up captive development centers in India, of course, but they don't have to, because they can just hire some Indian coders and some remote workers, because all companies are learning how to manage remote workers. So for them now it is very much possible to work with people from entirely different countries. Okay, just a moment. All right. What are the businesses are doing, or what law firms are doing, right? So one interesting trend that we can see is that people are specializing in areas where domestic demand is, predictable, right? So one is obviously working for these international clients. You can always work for international clients and figure out how to cater to this demand, right? But there is a lot of people who are essentially figuring out where the domestic demand is. So, for example, we know that there is a increased demand for healthcare. There is an increased demand for certain commodities, even, right? So I was just seeing this report on how the immunity market in India is thriving. Like products related to turmeric, products related to a bunch of immunity related products have just shot up. Vitamin C, many different things, amla, these kind of products have just, the demand for such things have shot up overnight, and there is a huge demand. So obviously there are businesses who are catering to this. There are people who are working in these sectors, and this is just one. Like, healthcare and preventive health and so on. This is one area of work, but there are a whole lot of things. Telemedicine is another area of work. But even outside, there is a lot of demand for example, ed tech, right? Education technology. There's a massive jump for a demand or in those things. Software as a service. Software as a service companies are really doing very well out of India. There is a domestic demand as well as there's a foreign demand that they are catering to. These companies have been doing well, and of course, they need capital, they need lawyers, they need contracts. Cloud computing has gone up in a big way. Uh, so I will quickly tell you, like, some of the areas in law where we see a lot of potential demand going forward. Banking and finance laws. Okay, because banking and finance laws, because there are so many banking finance contracts getting restructured, renegotiated. There are a lot of non-performing loans that needs to be monitored and strategized, and you have to recover. So there's a lot of money recovery work in banking and finance. So banking and finance is one area that is in high demand, and if you are looking to reskill, if you want to learn new skills, then definitely it's a very good area for you to learn. uh, Apart from that, there is definitely arbitration lawyers, because there is so many arbitration, so many contracts have been breached during the lockdown. So many people have been affected, so many businesses have been affected. Of course, people do not want to go to arbitration immediately. They have been waiting and watching, and they have been trying to get their dues in a simpler way. But now arbitrations are getting filed, and arbitrations will be filed even more when the courts start hearing and appointing arbitrators. So those things have been really slow. Appointment of arbitrators have been like really hardly happening at all by the courts. So ad hoc arbitration was difficult, but those things are changing now slowly all over India, and you will see more and more arbitration going forward, and arbitration lawyers will have a good time. So if you want to develop skills in arbitration, it's a good time. Uh, there has been a lot of consolidation and anti-competitive trends, and this has been recognized in India, that because they are the smaller companies, and weaker companies have not been able to function. They're going bankrupt, or they are not profitable, and then the bigger companies are buying them, and this is leading to a lot of work in competition law. There are a lot of other things also, like anti-competitive practices, cartelization issues are there. For example, you could buy these masks for 1 rupee, okay, in retail. uh, you could buy 10 of them for 1 rupee if you're buying it in bulk. But suddenly the price shot up to 17 rupees, 20 rupees in places like Delhi, Bombay for these same masks. And because after COVID, so there may be investigations, there may be cases that will be filed against these situations. And it's not just that, there are so many other products, Dettol and hand sanitizers. There would be a lot of work at the competition law competition commission going forward for a lot of issues. Yeah. And especially as consolidation picks up, uh, there will be anti-competitive trends and consolidation in the market, where stronger players take over market share, buys out competitors. So there will be a lot of work for competition lawyers. So competition law is a good area to learn right now and get into right now. Tax litigation definitely is going to pick up as government has become more aggressive, right, for more revenues, and taxman has become more aggressive. So tax laws. So if you are good at tax litigation, if you're good at tax laws, income tax, GST, customs, it's a great time, right? Uh, there are bright spots in transactional law practice as well, right? Some specific sectors are seeing a boom. Technology and media doing really well. Technology sector doing really well. Media sector doing really well. They have stayed strong and continue to generate a lot of work for lawyers. Real estate is seeing a lot of work on the dispute side, litigation side, not so much on transactional side. Government projects also expected to pick up, because when there are recessions like this, then government has to invest in major public infrastructure projects to get the engines of economy roaring. And for that reason, project lawyers and project finance lawyers also likely to see a lot of great growth. Solar industry is a bright spot in India. Like, it is said that the future is solar. And we will see massive adoption of solar energy going forward, because India is one of the most suitable places for solar energy. And right now the cost of solar, production of electricity from solar is much lower than producing coal based electricity or diesel based electricity, or mostly anything else. So we will see a moving away of our energy policy from coal and petroleum to solar more and more. And of course, a lot of infrastructure will be change, will be needed, a lot of investment will be needed. But this change is inevitable, and this is not just because of fossil fuel, but simply like it's a cheaper source of energy. Like, most of our money, like so much huge percentage of our GDP goes out into buying, I think 14% of our GDP like goes out into buying petroleum, going into foreign countries. If we don't have to send that money outside and we can keep it, and we can instead with that money we can generate solar energy, then it is not only a cleaner source of energy, but you are essentially avoiding a tax. Like, it's like India being free from a curse um, of having to pay for petroleum and having to pay for its energy to foreign countries. And that has been a dampener on our economic growth forever. But if we can really move to solar, it will be a game changer for us. And the projection is that within a few years, within 5 years or 10 years, we will move more and more towards it. So that means a massive amount of projects work, investment work, contracts would be coming from solar. So it's a very exciting thing. And we should definitely, keep that in mind, this kind of an opportunity. Right. So this is what it is. In fact, I have an article for all of you. I'm going to share the link here with you on the same topic. So if you want to know more about this, you can always refer to this. Right. Just a moment. Right. So here is the Energy laws, right? Pranav Sethi is saying energy laws is an excellent area. So you can go through this article. I have written it a while back. Uh, Remember that things have changed since then, especially the a very encouraging IMF report that India can grow at 8.1% next year, and even this year's growth will be around 4.1%. That is a game changer. Like I hope IMF is right, and we actually see this kind of growth going forward. Akash Sharma, was there a PPT today? It was not visible since the last 20 minutes. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, there is a PPT. I mean, I don't know. If you want the PPT, I can share the link also. But how is the PPT relevant? You need it. Oh, sorry, I haven't got the link. I sent it to Akash Sharma. By mistake. Okay, so I've shared the link with all of you. So now you should be having it. I'm guessing. Yeah, if you want a summary of the session, you have the whole article, right? So you can go through it and you'll get what you need. Great. So if there is any question, I'll be happy to answer at this point. Let me see. There's a question. Akash Sharma. Should ease of doing business improvement be a priority for increasing FDI be done? Increasing FDI will definitely drive out some local manufacturers that happened during LPG reforms in 1990. Yeah, sure. It will drive out local manufacturers, inefficient businesses, but that is exactly what you want. Because when resources are moved out of inefficient businesses, they move into efficient businesses. Then stronger business models emerge, right? So yeah, so it is the process that some businesses will go out of business, and that is okay because the resources being used by those businesses will go to better businesses, and that is how capitalism works. That is how efficiency is created. That is how markets function better and more faster economic growth happens, right? So if there are companies which are not performing well, there are companies which are inefficient, they will be going out of business, which is absolutely fine. That is how it should be. Okay, that is better for the economy. That is better for everyone, rather than keeping those businesses forcefully alive. It's not a good idea, as per economics, right? Uh, should you so ease of doing business should be improved, definitely. Ease of business, if it is improved, it will also attract more FDI, so there is no conflict there. So the moment you have more ease of doing business, more and more uh, capital will come into India. But what happened recently was that World Bank said, India really very fast improve in the ease of doing business index, and then later on World Bank backed off saying that this is not correct, and they said that their mistake was their report was a mistake, and they changed it, and it is because India focused on gaming the system and putting across images which is not true. So we need to work on the real stuff and not just showing metrics and showing convincing people that look, there is a change where real change is not happening. So that is one area of concern. Uh, but yes, improving ease of doing business will be a game changer for India. A lot of work should be done. Pranav Sethi, one of out of box question: can a non-NLU ever target or dream to work in a foreign law firm through extra language? Yes, Pranav. I have spoken to partners at foreign law firms. They are not against taking people from non-NLUs. They have no such thing. And you can get in provided you have the merit, you have the capability. Yeah, learning other languages is a good idea. Okay, then maybe you have very good marks in your own university. That is also a good idea. Okay, but you have maybe you have written a lot of good articles, maybe you have written a lot of published in a newspaper or written a column in a newspaper or written a book. There are so many things. So if you are a damn good lawyer and it shows that you are talented in your CV, in the way you talk, in the way you give your interview, in the way you think, so they are looking for great talent. They have no fascination for NLUs or anybody else. It does not happen because people from other places do not train themselves that way, so they don't get it. So it's absolutely, you can do it. Akash Sharma, I started Handbook of Flying Start today. It is one of the best legal, insightful book I have come across. Thank you, Akash. In fact, I'll share the link with everyone. Just a moment. I'll share the link with everyone. Everyone can download and read this if you haven't yet. Here you go. You can download it here and read. Is brain drain that prevalent in the legal sector due to magic circle law firms? Not really. It is not happening that much in the legal sector. But yes, a lot of people used to go abroad by doing the LLM and try to stay back there. Now it has become a little harder because those countries are not so much willing to allow immigration. But if you are really smart, they still allow, and that is the problem. So but in the legal sector there is not so much brain drain, but it is possible that if you want to work abroad, you can actually train yourself accordingly and go to, like, some countries are extremely welcoming towards Indian lawyers. For example, Canada is a great place. A lot of my students have moved to Canada in the last couple of years, got jobs there, doing well. There are people who have moved to Europe also after doing LLM in Europe. I have done some webinars with people, lawyers who have moved to Netherlands, England, Germany, France, Canada. You can see on our YouTube channel, you can find these webinars where these people have explained their journey, how they have ended up in those countries, and how they were able to move there. New Zealand, Dubai, Qatar have covered all these places, right? So a lot of people do move, but it is relatively rare compared to engineers, software engineers, or scientists. It's relatively rare. Where are they from non-NLUs? Yeah, there are people from non-NLUs. So one person was from Aligarh Law University. There was somebody who was from Punjab University, and all of people. It's not necessary that I don't know why you think without going to NLU you cannot do all this. You can, but you have to you have to network, you have to write articles, you have to publish, you have to learn practical skills, right? You have to learn skills that will be making you a valuable lawyer, desirable lawyer for an employer. Okay. If you have so much, have you, Pranav, have you taken any law seeker course? If not, take up a course like contract drafting or business laws, company law, some course you take up. It will, you'll not feel like this after you have done a course from law seeker, right? That then you'll realize that I know something, I know useful things, that if I go to an internship, I'm appreciated for the knowledge I have. I know, often I know more than NLU students also, right? So don't live in this kind of inferiority complex or feeling bad that I'm not from an NLU. Even if you're not from an NLU, but if you have great skills, then it will be an added advantage. People will say, wow, you are not from an NLU. Still, you know more than NLU people also. There is another book, I think you haven't read it once. See. This is a book where I've written how non-NLU students can perform 10x better than NLU students. Read this book. Okay. You can do 10 times better than NLU students if you do some things. You have to do some things. Like, it will not be happening without you working on it. All right. Great. So if there are any further questions, happy to answer, or I will take your leave and end the session here. Anybody, any questions? Not really. Okay, great. Thank you for attending today's session. Hope to see you tomorrow again. Tomorrow is the last session of the week. I do these sessions every day, 9 to 10 p.m., but only on weekdays, not on the weekend. So hope to see you tomorrow again.